Hello, good people, citizens of Kenya, and everyone who is listening to me, either in Kenya or outside Kenya. I hope you are all good and you are doing well and your businesses are doing well. Today is the second day of February, the second month of the year, and I hope everyone is doing well. So today, after some days of not posting on YouTube, I am back and I want to give some of the recap of what has happened over the last 5 days. I know a lot has happened and maybe the time might not allow me to recapture everything, but whatever I will go through, I think that will be good enough. And I hope throughout the video we are going to get to know what has been happening, what is going in the news, what our politicians are up to, what we can use from their sentiments to make our judgments. And as usual, I will still keep on teaching you guys, taking my civil duty to educate you now to vote wisely when it comes to vote, and also trying to educate and let you know that when it comes to choosing leaders, it is better to choose someone who is not close to you, but someone who is responsible enough to give you a better life than giving your vote to someone who is very close to you, or who is your relative, who you relate to. But when they go to the office, they will not even remember to make the road near you. They will not even remember to put water or to tap your homes, tap the water to your homes. It is better even to give a vote to someone who is not even your tribe, but someone who is going to do business with you, someone who is going to make doing business very easy to your people, to you and everyone in the country. It is even better to vote for someone whom will never even see you, or someone who does not know you, but behind what they are thinking about Kenya, they are just thinking about making Kenya a better place for us and for everyone. And with that, I want to start with what has been going on. So first, we'll look at the businesses a very dear business that has closed. It was a business that was very dear to Kenyans, because many of the Kenyans are living hand to mouth, and when these people are affected by anything in the country is shaken, and no one should allow these people to go into trouble. These are the people who have been using charcoal to make their food, who are using paraffin or kerosene to make their food. And these are the people who only afford 1 meal per day. These are the people who buy supper, they eat whatever remains, it's used for breakfast, and if they do not finish it for breakfast, they take it for lunch. And these are also the people who even do not bother to go for lunch, because when they come from their homes in the morning, they just come in the evening. Or maybe they do not even go out of their homes because they don't have anywhere to go, and they survive on borrowing. And if they get 10 bob, 30 bob, 50 bob, or they get 100, they think of spending 50 bob to buy supper, and the other 50 bob to buy fuel so that they can cook. So when Cocoa came to Kenya in 2019, it was solving this problem, because the cost of buying a cooking gas, LPG, is very expensive. Now getting a mtungi ya gas is around 6,000 ikiwa fully packed, ikiwa na gas, ikiwa na burner na everything. It's around 6,000. Now you cannot tell this person who pays a rent of around 2,500 to buy gas that is 6,000. That is like 3 times the amount of rent that they pay. And these are people who even live below $1 per day. So you can imagine how long is it going to take them to accumulate this amount of money. When Ruto came to power, he promised that cooking gas is going to go below 300.
Tutaweka pesa ya serikali kupunguza gharama ya mtungi ya gas. Ile ya kilo 6 mnanunua 2,500, 2,800, tutaishukisha chini mpaka shilingi 500 ama 300.
And when he said that, many people found relief in that, hoping that when it goes to 300, these people cannot afford that kind of gas, or cannot afford a gas cylinder at 6,000. They're going to afford it, and maybe refilling will be cheaper, because unaweza changa hiyo pesa kidogo kidogo, by the time your gas ishe unakuwa unaweza jizilia. But now you cannot imagine going to buy a gas at 6,000, then now you start accumulating another money now to keep on refilling. That's were very sweet words. They were very hopeful, and people were very hopeful in his promises, and they thought that is going to make it better for Kenyans. But alas, it is almost 3 years and he has never done that. What do we expect from him? Or what do we expect from whatever he's going to promise us? We shall see. So that is one of the issues. So when cocoa came in 2019, it came with a very affordable fuel. That is, when you have 50 bob, 30 bob, you can go to a cocoa ATM and refill your gas, go cook for 2 to 3 days, you go back. So as much as you can get 100 bob, you are not going to sleep hungry, and also you are not going to depend on charcoal or kerosene to cook. So since 2019, cocoa has been supplying this affordable cooking fuel, that is ethanol, to these people and making their life better. And since then, it employed more than 700 people who are in their supply chain and everything else. And these people also gained earned livelihood through cocoa. So you can see that together with these almost 1 million people are depending on cocoa, and these are the people who are living in the slums. By the way, if you think I'm joking, you can go to the slums and see how people are struggling now since cocoa is gone. These are people who are living in the slums, like 1 million or almost 1 million people are depending on it. There is also another around 700 people employed by the company. Now that it is closing down after 6 years of operation in Kenya, it means that 700 jobs are being lost in Kenya, and also almost 1 million people are going to start struggling or go back to burning charcoal and kerosene for cooking. So what do we take from this? And when cocoa was shutting down, they give a reason that the government denied them a license or certifications that allowed them to sell carbon credits. You know, carbon credit is like when a big company that has been consuming a lot of power, producing a lot of carbon, gives you like 1,000, gives you money so that you can spend and produce less carbon so that they can continue spending. Let's take, for example, let's take America and Kenya. When you compare the amount of carbon that America produces and that Kenya produces, you find that Kenya produces a very negligible amount of carbon. So for America to continue producing the amount of carbon that they are producing today, they pay Kenya a certain amount so that Kenya can continue spending this little, can continue producing this little amount of carbon, and so that America can continue producing the higher amount of carbon. And this is because of the global balance. You find that we face global warming in Africa, and yet Africa produces very little carbon. So when the members of United Nations met, they said that Africa cannot continue suffering because of the consequences of other countries. So for those countries to pay for their actions, they have to pay Africans because they are producing little carbon, so that now they can continue producing carbon. Otherwise, Africa should be given a chance or permission to produce carbon as much as they can, and those other countries should reduce their carbon to further or to the level that Africa is producing, so that now the balance can come. So these developed countries now came to an agreement that they are going to pay African countries, and in our example Kenya, to produce little carbon or to no carbon, and so that America can continue producing a lot of carbon. So you can see how the cocoa gas came into existence. So when cocoa company works with these people to burn as little carbon to produce as little carbon as possible, burning their fuel, and with the backup of World Bank, cocoa could be able to sell these carbon credits to these people so that now they can continue now burning their fuels, they can continue having those data centers which produce a lot of heat and also carbon footprints, and so that now they can continue doing their work without being interrupted. So when cocoa came to Kenya, I think it was agreed from 2019 they should do that business. I don't know what agreement they had, but the Kenya had to give them certification so that they can carry a business. So their business was not just selling the fuel, because fuel was highly subsidized, and it was subsidized because they are going to sell these carbon credits. So that's why these people who are living at very low cost, or people who are living in the slums, can afford this gas, so that when you're 50 bob, you can purchase certain amount of that gas, and it will take you for some time. However, last week, when they were trying to renew that certification so that they can continue selling carbon credits, the government of Kenya denied them that permission, and they told them they are not going to do that. I'm going to give you a snippet of those news. So they said that Cocoa will not continue to sell carbon credits. I don't know what happened. So Cocoa had to shut down the operations, cutting down 700 employees from employment, and also affecting almost 1 million consumers of their product. And thus, due to the impromptu stoppage of the operations in Kenya, and since World Bank was supporting Cocoa to operate in Kenya, and they had invested a lot in it, in the same process and also all the dynamics, now the World Bank is demanding 23 billion in compensation for that mishap. I'm going to attach those news again. So when you look at all those dynamics, you find that at some point the developed world uses developing world so that they can keep developing and that we don't develop. So if I was the Kenya's president, what would I do? I would stand firm and say that these kind of companies are not going to operate in Kenya. This is my reason. If these companies are allowed to keep operating in Kenya, they are going to suppress the development of Kenya. Now look at China. Before China developed to what it is today, back in 2010, China was the most polluted country in the world because they used coal, they used fossil fuels to produce everything that they produced. They manufactured everything using all those sources of energy. But as they developed, they came to recognize other sources of energy like solar, wind. Now they are working with some kind of nuclear plants so that they can produce power. But now without using that dirty power, they could not have come to this stage. So if Africa continues or agrees to continue producing this clean power, just as Trump says that you cannot rely on wind power because those windmills, they are big, but they do not produce a lot of power. You can burn a lot of fossil fuels and develop fast. So if you want to continue burning steel, you want to produce iron from iron ore, you have to use a lot of these fossil fuels to produce energy. And also when you look at our steam, our electricity, it does not only come from those hydroelectric power. It is impossible for them to supply us for very long, because when you look in the recent past, Kenya has been having very low rainfalls. That means the levels of water in our dams are very low. So these dams or the power stations, they are using diesel generators to produce power. So you can see, if we are not allowed to use fossil fuels to develop ourselves, we are going to take very long to develop, and we are going to live impoverished for a very long time. So I hope that our government and our people are going to understand that these developed countries, they don't love us that much so that they can give us money when we are just sitting, or they can subsidize our consumption so that we can live better. No, they are trying to suppress our development so that they can keep high. When you look at how Trump and the US are working, these are the people who are trying to suppress as many countries as possible so that they can remain up there. Even when China started threatening their dominance in the world, you can see the kind of fights that they're having. Isipokuwa ni venye China iko na nguvu ya kufight you could fight back in the US, China ingekuwa ishaangushwa. Then I was thinking now the fight between US and China, nilikuwa naiangalia hivi. So for now, when you look at China, China is the world's producer of goods. China produces as many goods as the world consumes. Like most of the goods consumed by the world is produced in China. And now China ina produce at the best quality goods. Si kama venye ukiambiwa kitu ni ya China, ama ukitaka kuambiwa kitu ni ya fake, ulikuwa unaambiwa ni ya China. So China ina produce vitu mzuri. So if China was to stop producing as it is producing today, what would happen? So I was thinking that China, as much as they are fighting with the US and the US want to topple China, China should hold grip and hold firm and stay there on top so that it can keep on supplying the world with the products. And also if Africa can wake up and we hold our hands together and start producing, I think we can help China to supply the world with the products. So I think I talked a little bit with that from my previous videos. You can watch my previous videos and you'll see those conversations and see how it goes. So that is one of the news that were happening over the week about Cocoa Company coming to Kenya in 2019 and closing down in 2026 due to some certifications that were not given. I hope they are going to resolve it so that they can help these people dependent on it so much, or the government is going to come with an alternative. Maybe hii plan ya Ruto ya produce mtungi ya gas na 300 itakuwa actualized now, ndio wasi waweze kupata a better means of living. Otherwise, the government should always find solutions for its people when they are struggling. In the other news, we see that in Uganda we have the leader of the army, that is Muhoozi. Muhoozi is Museveni's son. Museveni is the president of Uganda. Museveni has ruled Uganda for 40 years now, since 1986 when he toppled the president then and he became the president. So Muhoozi, the son of Museveni, has been brought up in the state house and maybe he does not know the struggles of other people. So Muhoozi has been very vocal online, more so on Twitter, speaking every kind of anything that he wants. When he wants to talk bad about women, he does not even care what he's going to utter. When he wants to talk about maandamano in the country, he does not even care about the consequences. Anything that he wants to talk. Even at some point, he said that they can topple Kenya in a day or 3 days when we start fighting with them. I tried to find that tweet and attach it somewhere. He said that if Kenya were to fight with Uganda, Kenya will not survive the fight. So I was thinking, if the Kenyan CDF could start talking about that, start talking like Muhoozi could talk on Twitter, what would Kenya look like? Does it mean that Muhoozi is protected by the law or by his father's power against any kind of action that is taken to him? But now, in the recent past last week, he took it further and he started attacking the US Embassy. He said that the US Embassy has been working in conjunction with Uganda's opposition leader, that is Bobi Wine, to hide him from their grip, because he said that they have been looking for him, but the US now helped him to hide. And he said that since the US have been helping the opponent or the enemy of Uganda, and now the US has been undermining their power or their actions, they are going to withdraw from all the association that they have with the US, together with from the operation in Somalia. Do you know Somalia, the AMISOM, the armies from East Africa or Africa, which operate in Somalia so that they can curb Al-Shabaab and its menace. They have been working there together with the US, trying to stop all the operation of Al-Shabaab. And when he said that one attracted the fierce hand of the US, and the Senate said that he has crossed the lines and it is very dangerous, and these talks are very dangerous. I'm going to attach those tweets of Muhoozi ranting that the US has been undermining them, also apologizing to them because of saying that when US attacked back and said that he has crossed red line. And again, when you look at his behavior even after elections, Uganda's election were questionable because before the elections came, they switched off they switched off internet, making sure there is no one who knows what is happening in Uganda. So either they rigged the elections or Museveni won fair and square. No one will ever tell. And after that, they started killing the repellents, the people who are saying that the election were not fair. So they started killing them, and he was claiming that they have just killed 27. That was a little number. I'm try to show that so that you can see. So you can see the kind of inhumanity that is in that man. And the problem is, while he's doing that and he's the leader of the army forces, the defense forces of Uganda, people who should be respected, people whose operations should not even be displayed to the community, and things which should be handled by the police, the defense forces are handling. The defense forces are people who should be protecting the country from external attacks, but yet they are the one who are attacking the citizens. What kind of leadership or defense forces is that? And since now he is the son of Museveni, of course, he's trying to protect his father's legacy or his father's empire so that it will not fall. Maybe it was a system that was designed for that. So I hope that at some point watu ya Uganda watapata relief, although naona some rumors wakisema he might take over the politics after his father akuwe president wao. I hope they will not make that mistake, because huwezi niambia mtatoka from a dictator to another, even a ruthless dictator who does not even think twice before saying anything that is harming the image of the country, and say that now the country is going to go anywhere. I hope that the people of Uganda are going to get some relief after the exit of Museveni, and that will be a good day for East Africa. And if Museveni has achieved a lot in 40 years, I think now it's time to leave, to pave way for someone else, and not his son. His son is in army. He should focus on army and protecting Uganda, not fighting Ugandans within. Army is to protect people, not to fight them. When we go to Governor Barire's Embu, she took money that was meant to build the industrial parks and used it for he used that money for border empowerment. Even the irony is, hiyo pesa haikufikia wasa bodaboda. So the question was, alitumia hiyo pesa kufanya nini? Wasa bodaboda walikuwa nasema hiyo pesa hakupata. Wamekuwa kilalamika sana wakisema hiyo Barira anasema hiyo pesa alitumia kuempower haikufika. So anasema hiyo pesa ataiendesha. Then after that, a day after, the Barira's people came out and said that the constitution allows for reallocation of money so that it can be used in other ways. So wanasema hiyo pesa iliwekwa kwa bodaboda sector, na wasa bodaboda wanakuanga kwa hizo circles, they can access that money if they want. So the question is between empowering bodaboda, which is already operating, and building a industrial park which will help people add value to their products, help people increase production, help people have value in what they are producing, help people to become even self-sufficient, and just empowering bodaboda and stealing most of the money. Which one is better? Viongozi wakiulizwa maswali kama hizo kwa ukaribu, waseme kwa nini wanatumia pesa ya umma kimakusudi kuangusha maendeleo ya nchi, watasema nini? Because if the Senate was a serious House of Representation that represents the people like Cecil Barire should not be in the office today. Anafaa kuwa kwanza ashasimamishwa, ambaye weka kando kwanza tuchunguze 10 million ilitumiaje. Na juu ina speech in Senate when she was being handled by the senators, she admitted that she used that money and she knows and she's going to refund. That by itself is a sufficient reason why she should be stopped and be asked more questions on how she's using the county's money. either for our own development or even to advance our own interest or interest of our masters. Kithure Kindiki being one of them. Then when we go to talking of Kithure Kindiki, he has been one of the people who have hit headlines. The office of the deputy president wasainiwa pesa mingi sana, ilikuwa imepewa in the year 2025-2026 alikuwa amepewa 3.1 billion. That's a lot of money from Kenyans taxpayers money. Now out of that money he has spent 380 million or 340 million just flying around, using choppers, just having his luxury life as much as he can. Also, when we look at, again, we see that out of the 3.1 billion that he was given, he allocated 3 billion to spend in a day-to-day activities. Hiyo ni kununua chai, of course, kutumia pesa kufanya tu shughuli zake 1 2 3. Akitaka kukimbia mahali anachukua, akitaka kwenda majuu anachukua, akitaka kufanya nini, kulipa wasee wake, akitaka kuongeza more labor, akitaka kuchukua tu watu wake bado ya bribe, akitaka kuchukua tu pesa kadhaa aende akapiga siasa kama venye alikuwa anapiga siasa huko Mbeere North. Hiyo ni pesa yenye alikuwa anatumia day to day activities so that he can, so he used 3 billion in day to day activities. That hiyo ni pesa hata when you start accounting for it, not easy to account. Then the remaining 0.1, that is 100 million. Anasema saa that's the only man that's going to use for development. So now you ask yourself, how selfish are our leaders? You have a budget of 3.1 billion. Instead of, as a leader, thinking about how you're going to use this money to advance your name by doing good for the people, you're thinking about how you're going to use this money to advance your own interest and make yourself feel better in everything that you're doing. How evil can our leaders be? If he used this money, let's say for instance, hata asiende outside Mount Kenya, aende tu hapa Mount Kenya, organize wenye wasi wa majani chai watakuwa na way of wakichuna majani chai yao, wanaweza process, they sell finished products. Aende tena organize wase macadamia, badala ya kuexport macadamia ikiwa anaprocess macadamia, anaexport ikiwa processed. And empower hata my youths venye tu nini Nyota inapeana 25,000. Aseme I'm not going to do the way Nyota is doing. I'm going to pick like 1,000 people across the region, across the country. These are the people that I'm going to mentor. I'm going to educate them on some business, very strategic businesses. Like for instance, when you see cocoa is exiting the country, now you can teach other people like 1,000 people or 500 people when you take over that biashara. But now you teach them in a way that when they come in, they are insiders. See it ni pesa yenye inaenda nje. So they are going to work hand in hand with the government, helping themselves, selling the carbon credits as Kenyans. Hakuna mtu mwingine ana interfere. Then you make sure that these people are well trained. Now when they take over the market, when they go to the streets, they are going to do a good job. Instead of just spending all that money to do things that are not necessary. So all those news, I'm going to attach them and the clips of those people talking around so that you can see how our country is going. Also, again, we can see that our MPs wa Northeastern amekuwa grilled. Kuna MP wa sijui ni Isiolo ama Mandera, alikuwa anaulizwa alitumia pesa yake kufanya nini. Anasema he used like 55 million to buy seedlings. And you know how dry this place is. Instead of boring boreholes, achimbia wase wake maji, wapate maji permanent. Yeye anasema anapelekeanga maji na hizi magari. Of course, when a leader said that they have been taking food to their citizens, amekuwa akiwapelekea chakula, amekuwa akiwapelekea maji, amekuwa akipelekea hizo seedlings, you not ask whether those seedlings reach the people. The other question should be like, where did you get these seedlings from? These seedlings litoka wapi? Because of course unaweza pata yeye ndiye alikuja akapanda hizo seedlings ndio auze, na akianza kuuza hizo seedlings, kama seedling ni 100 aizuza na 100, of course ata resort kwenda kuuza hiyo seedling na 200, 300 hata 1000. Tuliona wakinunua wheelbarrow ya 100,000. What kind of wheelbarrow goes for 100,000? Hii maji inaweza kuwa ni yeye anajua mahali inatoka na ndiye anajiuzia maji yenye inafaa kuwa hiyo kwa 5000 liters na kanini katanga ka 5000 liters badala kununua around 4000 ama 3000 tunapata anajicharge like 15000 ya kule hiyo kwa juu. Ukiangalia vitu kama hizo foods, hizo relief food, hiyo food si ati ameenda aka promote watu wake wenye amelima wakaika food in their silos. No, is going to look for tender, ajipe tender and their supply of food ndio kule excess. So these are questions that we should be asking our leaders. Ama also we ask ourselves, for how long tutaenda kutumika na our leaders for them to advance their interest. Na tujiulize sana kama Wakenya, tusikae tu tukikaa tukingoja miujiza itendeke. There's no miracles that are going to happen to us if we are not going to work our minds and to try watu kama hao. Hatuwezi kuwa wasa wanakufa kwa Northeastern, then when you come mahali kama Central wanatumia chakula kama food yenye inaweza kuliwa na wanadamu kama chakula ya wanyama, na wasa wamekuwa kipawa pesa mingi sana. They could have expanded their roads. Unapata hata chakula kama from Central, unapata trade between Central na Northeastern ni very easy. Pata time ile kuna food mingi na huko Nyandarua time wanakuwa kikatakata chakula kwa shamba wanakatakatia chini. Hiyo chakula inabebwa vizuri inapeleka wasi wanakula. Not that one part of Kenya inakaa ni kama hata si Kenya, ni kama hata si place ya wase kuishi, na kwingine they are living a very lucrative life. We should check on who we elect and the vision that our people have. Last, I'm going to put that clip of him trying to argue on how he used 55 million to buy seedlings and how confused he looked. And also when kuna time President Ruto alikuwa anasema samaki za Lake Turkana ndio tu ziuzeeka hadi zinakufa because there is no roads. So ni aibu sana kusikia president akisema hivyo, because as a president unafaa kuimagine ni mtu anafaa kama na policy yenye inasema tutaenda kutengeneza a railway. We are going to revive the railway, the old railway. Yenye itakuwa ina transport hizo fish from there to Nairobi. So Nairobi huwezi pata fish hata 100, huwezi pata fish ya 200. Na anasema fish zinazeeka huko zinakufa. What is the reason na watu hawezi trade? So they should be making policies to make life of Kenyans better. And how does he do that? Just sitting down with these people, crafting some very good policies and supporting them to the end, and make sure that those policies go to the end, and that way his people are going to be happy and maybe they are going to re-elect him. But for someone who is making the lives of Kenyans difficult and more difficult, and instead of working for Kenyans, he sends his bloggers and goons to start interrupting, to start insulting people, asking for accountability. It's a lot of nonsense and it is very dangerous, presidents. So we should, as Kenyans, you should be very careful. Nasema, I'm going to take time to teach you guys to do my civil responsibility, to teach you about politics. The much I know, we share.